Before we jump in, I want to point out that this course assumes that you have a basic understanding of search engine optimization and the terminology that goes along with it. If you're not already familiar with these concepts, I recommend you first take a look at the SEO Fundamentals course, which will bring you up to speed. Now, when we talk about local search engine optimization, we're referring to the process of making sure all the online elements of your business are optimized so that your search result appears in front of an extremely relevant audience at a time when they're displaying interest in your product or service. In the case of local SEO, that relevant audience is someone that is currently or will be in the same vicinity as your business. When you visit a search engine, say Google, and enter a term, the goal of Google is to provide you with the best possible result. It's why you continue to search on Google. If they keep delivering what you were hoping for in the first few results, you'll continue to conduct your searches on their system. Google is motivated to deliver the best possible result. It's how they make their money. So when you enter that search term, in an instant, Google has to make a determination. Is this something the user would want near them? Or is this something global? Looking for cupcake recipes is very different than looking for cupcake bakeries. If I'm in Santa Barbara, a cupcake bakery in Texas is likely not what I'm looking for. However, a cupcake recipe can be on any blog written by anyone, regardless of location. But how does Google differentiate? In an extremely simplistic explanation, a bakery is clearly a category of a business that would be local. A recipe is not. How they know the difference between those words is a course in itself. But that's not what matters for you. What matters is that Google knows you're a cupcake bakery and not an outlet for recipes. That's local SEO. Together, we're going to look at how to provide Google with the right information so that you not only show up when someone is looking for you, but that you're provided with the tools to show up on top. Before we get deeper into local SEO, I want to take a minute to share a high-level overview of how local SEO works. Understanding what's going on behind the scenes will be valuable as you adapt the material you're learning to your own specific business needs. When you enter a term into Google and hit submit, a lot happens simultaneously. Google's going to check to see if it has any historical information on you, what searches you may have conducted previously, and any cookies that you're dragging along. Beyond that, they'll receive data on your physical location, which can come from your IP address, the public network you're connected to, or even the true GPS data from a mobile device if you're providing it. Now, that's a fairly simple explanation, but it's more than sufficient to get a picture of what's going on behind the scenes. So, now that Google has that information, they're going to work to understand what it is you've searched for. There's a few types of local searches: contextual, inferred, and intent. Contextual is really easy for Google to understand. In this case, a user provides Google with a specific location, and that location is identical to where the user currently is. So if I'm somewhere in Los Angeles and I conduct a search for the term cupcake bakery, Los Angeles, Google has a very clear understanding of what I want. They have the complete context. The next type of search is an inferred search. In this case, if I was in Los Angeles and I conducted a search for cupcake bakery, Las Vegas, Google has to infer that I'm actually interested in local results from Las Vegas, despite the fact I'm currently in Los Angeles. The last type of search is intent, and this is becoming one of the most popular types of searches. As Google gets better and better at understanding the intent of a search, people are less likely to include additional location context. In this type of search, I'm in Los Angeles, California, and the only thing I type into Google is cupcake bakery. In this case, I may even stretch Google by leaving out the term bakery and instead only using the root keyword cupcakes. Part of identifying the right local SEO strategy is also identifying what type of search query your target audience is most likely to use. There's potentially a different approach to rising to the top in a contextual query versus an intent query. There's a lot that goes on to make local SEO work, but understanding the basics will give you the foundation you need to be successful with your implementation. To better understand the value of local SEO, let's take a look at how local search results appear under a few different scenarios. Now, I'm going to be using a desktop computer throughout this course, but it's important to remember that a majority of these searches are being done from mobile devices. So if you're following along, try using your mobile phone for these same searches and compare them. So the first thing I'm going to do here on google.com is search for a cupcake bakery. The first listing we have is a website for a cupcake bakery in Orange County, followed by images for cupcake bakeries, and then a website for a company that's local to me here in Santa Barbara. And below that, we've got some Yelp reviews and even a Facebook page. But you'll notice that here on the right-hand side, Google is bringing in what it thinks is most related to our business search. And here we have a card for the business. We can see some photos, information about the business such as reviews, their category, their address. We can even see the most popular times at this location. Let me show you another search. And this time, let's look for cupcakes, Santa Barbara. Now, when we do this, things look a little different. The first thing we have here is what we refer to as the local 3-pack. And this is going to bring in a map and a list of 3 businesses that are relevant to our search. We also can see some at-a-glance information such as reviews, location, business category, and images. You can interact with this local pack using filters. In this case, we have an hours dropdown in the upper left-hand corner, but that filter may change depending on the category of the business. So you can see right away why it would be important to have really good local SEO. In this scenario, your business listing through Google displays before any websites. So it's important to appear front and center. Now, if I go back and do a search for, say, a barber, you can see again we have 3 relevant results, but there's also this link here for more places. Now, most people are going to interact with the results right here on the first page. And while a lot of that will have to do with location, there's a good amount of local SEO going on, as you'll learn throughout this course. Now, as we look around, we can also see that Google has a suggestion here on the right-hand side. You see, they're assuming that we wanted to find a local barber, but just in case we actually were looking for information on the occupation of barbers, I could tap that to get out of these local results. Now, what's also cool is if you select a listing, I'll pick the first one, Google's going to refresh the page, and we're going to see more options along the left-hand side, and we're going to get that business card that we saw earlier here in the center of the screen. And just like before, there's all kinds of information about the business, as well as things that other people searched for, and additional relevant web results. So let's try a different search. Let's say we're looking for the best hamburger in Santa Barbara. And again, we get the local 3-pack, except this time, Google is going to organize things based on what it thinks is the best ratings for hamburgers. In this case, it's saying that Chubby's is the most popular burger based on reviews. You can see they have a 4.5 rating, followed by The Habit, which is 4.2, and Eureka, which is 4.1. Now, whether or not I agree with that being the best hamburger, well, that's a whole different story. But as we scroll down, we can see some additional information coming out of this best hamburger search. We see these local Yelp reviews, and that's because the best burger term tends to be more of a review-centric type search than a website-centric type search. But you do see articles appear as you go down in the results. So you can see how putting some of these types of search terms on your site will not only help bring it front and center, but by gaining reviews on Google, you'll also help bring your business front and center in the local pack. Now, the way that your result appears is going to be really dependent on the exact query, the user's location, and what Google has assumed the intent to be. But by having a complete Google profile, along with high-quality local SEO strategy, well, that's going to make your business stand out both in Google listings and with your local website.